Kia ora, Wellington. Kia ora, Infrastructure New Zealand. My name is Ken Hutchison, as Stephen said. I'm the Managing Director of Scottish Water International, and it's a great pleasure to be invited to come along and talk to you today. I've been working in the water industry in Scotland for over 30 years at senior management level, in operations, customer service, asset management, and latterly as a Director of Capital Investment. And that allows me to actually talk from a good platform on an insight into what Scottish Water is as a national publicly owned utility that delivers high performance. Now, the political landscape and challenges may be different in New Zealand to Scotland, but I hope to draw out some sufficient parallels with Scottish Water's transformational journey that might resonate with you and add to the debate on what's right for New Zealand. So, to this end, I'm going to cover our vital role as water and wastewater services provider for Scotland. I'll talk about our transformational journey and touch on the performance improvements that we've made. And also, what's the benefits of having a larger organisation and what size can bring. So, just as some background to place where Scottish Water is, we supply over 5 million customers. We're about a 1.2 billion turnover business. We deliver services through about 244 water treatment works and 1,800 wastewater ones. And we supply major cities like Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen, as well as very rural communities in the northwest and some rocks in the middle of the Atlantic with 6 people on it, which we actually employ 2 of them usually. But it is a diverse group of communities which are very similar to New Zealand, although you have a larger landmass. Our purpose really is to provide continuous high-quality water, protect and enhance the environment, and support the Scotland's economy and their communities, but all undoubtedly with the customer at the heart of our business. To give you a flavour of how we operate and the governance of Scottish Water, I've got a lovely complicated diagram here. So this is the Scottish water industry landscape and how we're regulated. Scottish Water is in fact a big goldfish in a small pond with lots of people looking at them. We, unlike England and Wales where there are multiple companies with a singular regulator, we have multiple regulators with one company. Makes us special. We are owned by, at the top, the Scottish Government. Below that, and we are accountable to a minister in the Scottish Parliament. On the left, we've got our quality regulators, an independent drinking water quality regulator who ensures that we supply wholesome water every day to the whole population and ensures that we're constantly improving that. And we have the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency who does the same on the environmental side, ensuring that our consents and our discharges are to the right level. On the bottom, we've got the Citizens Advice Bureau and the SPSO, and that is they're around giving independent advice to customers and helping them with any escalation of issues and advice. And on the right at the top is the Water Industry Commissioner, and that group set the charges and agree the charges, benchmark us comparatively against other companies to set efficiency levels, and ultimately set what we need to achieve. The interesting one and the game changer for us is the next one down called the Customer Forum, and that was created by the Water Industry Commissioner to put the customer at the heart of all our long-term planning and our short-term business plans. And that is a group of 9 bright people taken from business, boards of companies, company bodies, retailers, chaired by an astute ex-minister, and they guide the customer insight and research that's required to determine what are the priorities for Scotland, what do our customers really want, and what is their willingness to pay. So, a lot of regulation, but it keeps us right, and it actually truly benefits Scotland. And what has it done? Well, it has driven us from being a high-cost business. We used to be the most expensive water utility in the UK, and it has taken us down to one of the lowest. And this regulatory framework has ensured that's happened. And the customers can now enjoy as much water to drink every day, and they can flush the toilet as many times as they like for less than £1 a day. Just because I knew there were some accountants in the audience, I thought I would talk about funding and expenditure. So on the left here, we've got a stacked bar which shows how we're funded, and on the right, a stacked bar of the costs. So you can see from this that the majority of our funding is from charges. So we are now, with this regulatory environment, on a sustainable footing, with charges covering all operational, capital maintenance, a large part of the capital programme, and that is also balanced with some limited funding borrowing from the government. You will see also in that stacked bar that above the 381 operating costs, there's 155 million associated with PFI, and that is to pay for 9 wastewater treatment works that we outsourced and got funded for when we couldn't afford it. So Kevin talked this morning about being in a time machine, so I thought I'd put you in a time machine as well, and rather go forward, we'd go back. And because I've been around for about 30 years, I'm in this picture. I'm the small boy with the shorts on at the back. So I thought that because where New Zealand is in relation to its services, it might be worth stepping through this to see exactly how the Scottish water industry has evolved and where we could place New Zealand on that transition. So in the Victorian era, we were run by municipalities. In the 60s, there was water boards, with the sewage being run by councils. In the early 70s, there was a major reorganisation, and we were put back into local authorities. And then there was a formation of 3 large north, east and west water authorities, and then finally Scottish Water. And you can see the rationalisation of assets in red in the bottom as more strategic decisions were taken, more regional schemes put in place. Now, I want to focus in on a couple of these changes, and primarily it's the more recent ones. In 1996, we were run by, there was 12, there's 2 missing off there, there's 2 islands up north, 12 municipalities in Scotland. And Scotland was faced with a large EU regulation, and we could not cope with how will we address all of these legislation. At the time of the local authorities, there was fairly bland legislation with little consequences for failing. You had supply wholesome water. What does that mean? Has it got less lumps in it, or what? But with the introduction of EU directives, it actually forced us to up the performance of that. So what happened was that the councils, there was no votes in sewage was often a call from councillors. Money was spent on education, on roads, on highways, and less on the sewerage side. So we fell behind greatly. In England and Wales, they were privatised at that time, and performance was improving, and we lagged behind. So this first game changer was really the introduction of legislation, and Scottish Water, the Scottish Government stepped in and withdrew the services away from councils to ensure that we met this legislation. The second game changer was in 1999. The Water Industry Commissioner came in, economic regulation came in, and he said that the only way to achieve this was to actually, to efficiency, was to form the 3 authorities and actually compare them, and with comparative benchmarking using the Ofwat model, which you'll hear about later, we proved that our gap had grown in performance. So we soon realised that the only way to achieve the performance that's required and the efficiency was actually to move to one national authority, because the north of Scotland, with its low population, could not afford the bills of investment, and we had to share it across the wider population, the costs. Scotland is quite a socialist country, so they're quite happy to pay the same charge across the whole of Scotland for the same service. So Scottish Water became a single entity. It was formed because of regulation from Europe, and formed because the regulator came in and drove efficiency and said that the smaller companies could not do that. So Scottish Water's primary objectives were merging the three authorities, reducing OPEX by 40%, delivering £500 million worth of savings and delivering capital programmes, and improving every measure that we could. And there was lots to do. We had people that couldn't see their legs in the bath, in the water. We had leakage that was flowing down the roads, and we were polluting our rivers and water courses. And the third game changer was customers. Our reputation was in tatters at the start because there was problems with water quality, problems with flooding, and it's a big catalyst of change when customers are disgruntled with your service. You can't have your granny wading in sewage, effectively. So this is the journey. It's a diagram here of the value for customers and stakeholders on the vertical axis and each of our regulatory periods going forward. And what we had was major, and the green line is the performance of the English and Welsh comparative companies, and the red line indicatively is how Scottish Water has improved over the years. We basically were so expensive at the start that the merger of the one authority allowed us to take 40% of that operating cost out. We went from 6,600 employees down to 3,400. We improved business process mapping. We did operational task scheduling. We looked at spans of control. We only had one head office, not three. All of these things dropped the money out of the business. The next period between 2006 and 10, we had to look at improving the performance of our assets. So the development of having a large authority allows you to have centres of excellence in water, in wastewater, in process science, in engineering. All of that allowed that focus to be developed in that capability. And that drove improvements in all of the assets' performance. In 2010 to 15, we really looked at closing the performance gap, and with using a mechanism called the overall performance assessment, which is a basket of 13 measures which you can compare. We drove the performance, so we started to narrow the gap between our performance and those of our comparators. And in 10 to 15, we woke up to the customer. We absolutely woke up and realized customer satisfaction needs to be measured, and latterly from 15 onwards, it's customer experience. So what we have now driven is better service at lower cost. And in some aspects of the customer side, I would say that we're starting to become leading. So how does that regulation journey look? Now, because the regulation was a key aspect of that. And back in 2002, we were very confrontational relationship with our economic regulator. We thought, what's this economist coming in and telling an engineer how to run the water supply? So we were very confrontational. It was not a good relationship, and it didn't actually benefit Scotland. Latterly, in 6 to 10, there was our parent-child, it was more parent-petulant child relationship, as we kept trying to prove that we were different from anyone else, that we had islands and loads of coastline and everything. But actually, when you boiled it down, if we had spent more energy on actually improving performance, that would have been more beneficial. So from 10 onwards, we actually woke up to regulation, aligned behind it, and started spending management time on improving things. And from 15 onwards, we're now looking at customer-led with the introduction of the customer forum. And now we're looking more from 2021 onwards in a thing called ethical regulation, which is a collaborative, open book approach with the regulator, with the stakeholders, with the companies, so that we all align for what's best for Scotland and ultimately what is best for the customers of Scotland. And that transformational journey has allowed us to put the customer at the heart of the business. We've become more intelligent in using information and employing statisticians to actually predict what service failure. We've shifted from talking about asset risk to service risk and looking at how can we invest absolutely intelligently to ensure it's the least cost investment for that. We're working more collaboratively with the supply chains. We're using alliancing to allow that benefit of their knowledge into our plans. And we're looking at, therefore, getting better cost intelligence and program intelligence. And we've also looked at, I know resilience is different in New Zealand, having seen some of the videos this morning, but we're looking at improving resilience because only 15% of our population has got a dual supply. So we want to improve that to 100% by 2040. And we've got real insight as to what the customer priorities are. Internal sewer flooding, long-term interruptions and drinking water quality are high up there. And what happens, though, when you get it right is, you don't get grannies wading in sewage, you get good headlines. And the customers like that. And we are really pleased with the position we're at the moment, but not complacent. So what's our performance like then? I'll skip through a quick view just to show you that the performance has actually happened. It's not just a graph that I drew. We measure four key measures. Customer experience, which measures both the number of contacts that you have with the customer, as well as the qualitative approach, so quantitative and qualitative approach to customer experience. So how have they felt our response to incidents? How do they feel when they've not had an incident and they just get the service? That is all measured under our customer experience. Overall measure of delivery is around the capital program delivery. OPA is about more of a basket of measures on the performance of our assets and profit. Because what Scottish Water does is it returns all the efficiency and profit back to the customer to decide how do you want it improved. On the light blue line, you can see that water quality is improved. On the dark blue line, you can see that our environmental pollution incidents have dramatically changed. On customers, you can see that the red complaints have come down and that the customer satisfaction is now up around the 90s, which is excellent. When you compare a number of written complaints, we are quite down, we're leading in this area. There are other areas that the English and PLCs are leading on, and things like interruptions to supply. But on the customer side, we are doing well. On health and safety, you can see that a dramatic improvement in health and safety. And this is all gained by having focus on delivering a water service. And what you also see is that we are now looking at not comparing ourselves with the utilities, because this is the UK Customer Service Index, and you can see that actually the utilities are not what you should be comparing yourself with, because who wants to be the best of a bad bunch? You've got to start looking at retail, you've got to start looking at other areas that we can actually learn from and excel. So the summary really is that we have reduced our costs, gone from a high-cost, low-quality service, so through lots of service improvements, and we've driven the OPEX cost down. And that has changed us to a low-cost, high-quality service. I had to get a saltire in there somewhere. What's key to delivering these improvements? Well, clear vision, absolute vision and strategy and alignment behind that, and determined and inspirational leaders. And also, to quote Dominic, what has made the biggest difference is he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It's the people, it's the people, it's the people. So having the right people developed in the right competence, that is made the major difference to us. So quickly, swiftly, and lastly moving on, what does a national utility drive? Well, it drives efficiency. The size and scale allows you to have procurement efficiencies. It allows you to rationalize the number of staff, back office support services. It allows you to develop core capability, to focus on water and wastewater services. It allows you to create centers of excellence. It allows you to take a strategic approach to risk, to regional schemes and resilience, and also allows you to spread the cost of investment across more customers. And competence can be built everywhere. So what does this mean for New Zealand? Well, fundamentally, in Scotland, we had a real driver for change. We had three big things. We had the European legislation and the threat of massive fines for non-compliance. We had the regulation, economic regulation coming in and shining a light and putting a mirror up to us saying, you're fat, you're ugly, you're not performing. And thirdly, we had customers giving us insights into what their priorities. And these three catalysts of change formed Scottish Water and has made it into the company it is now. So I need you to consider, what are the drivers of change for Havelock North, for New Zealand? Is it Havelock North incident? Is it the cost of meeting the new improvements? Whatever the driver of change is it resilience? It must be compelling, and after that, you need bold leadership. Leadership from a political level, inspirational leadership from a company level. You need effective regulation, and all through all of that, you need to take employees with you and engage with them. And it's not, as I've proved over a large period of time there, you've got to stay on and be resilient and keep that journey going. Otherwise, it's easy to drop back. So these are just some challenges. Whatever's right, it will be right for New Zealand. But hopefully with this insight, it's given you a case study that you can look at and maybe consider, and what are the drivers for change. Thank you.